And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for Friday morning. A lot of IFR here streaming right into the interior here. Well, at least into the west coast and possibly to the Kuskokwim Mountains by early tomorrow. IFR up to the Seward Peninsula, and also IFR here for the eastern Arctic coast. And a band here extending down toward Adak and Atka. VFR, central eastern interior, actually from the western Arctic coast, right on down into the southern panhandle. And then for the afternoon, VFR for the entire southeast coast, up in across the Gulf of Alaska, and about the eastern half of the state there. Now marginal VFR for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Big area of IFR here from Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, right on down in toward northern Bristol Bay, spilling into the Kuskokwim Valley, and then with a frontal boundary right through here, some IFR extending down to just east of Atka Island. For Saturday morning, this area kind of shifting up to the northeast a little bit, but having trouble making any eastward progression with some good high pressure farther to the east. So it kind of hangs up here over the western part of the state, at least through Saturday morning. Break to marginal VFR there for the Pribilof, St. Matthew Island, as well as the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, and another batch of IFR out over the central Aleutians westward to Shemya. And then for the afternoon on Saturday, IFR slipping now into the Tanana Valley, but staying north of the Alaska Range there, staying VFR east and south of the Alaska Range, including the Copper River Basin, Prince William Sound, Kodiak Island, but everywhere else up here to the north, looking at considerably lower flying conditions to the Arctic coast. Marginal VFR, east central Bering Sea, another system out here with some IFR pushing across Adak and increasing back to the west, stays VFR for the Gulf of Alaska and across the Panhandle. Passes, Anatuvik and Adigan. Good VFR day again tomorrow for both passes, Lake Clark and Merrill. VFR as well as rainy, although all three passes will probably see an increase in at least the mid-level clouds throughout the day. And then for windy, VFR and Isabel, VFR as well. Mintesta looking good with VFR flying. Good VFR for Tanita as well as Portage, another VFR day there. And Chilkoot and White. VFR. Freezing levels here. The warm air out here coming up ahead of that system, south to north flow here, pushing 2,000 to 4,000 feet right up to the Pribilof Islands. At the surface now, back up to just south of St. Lawrence Island, back down across northeast Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and in across the central southeast coast. And icing could be some remaining possibility of some icing here for the central and southern panhandle of the light variety, maybe isolated moderate at worst. Bigger area of icing, bigger potential for some considerable moderate icing was with all the moisture coming into the Bering Sea here with that frontal system right into the southwest coast and a little ways inland, then trailing back along the front to the west central Aleutians. And the jet stream here showing southwest flow there coming into the southern Bering Sea at about 100 knots with high pressure here over the Alaska Peninsula. Westerlies across the Chukchi Sea at about 80 knots. Take a dive to the southeast here with the colder air to the east, warmer air building out here to the west. So we've got 85 knot winds out of the northwest between the cold and high, or the cold and warmer air there. And then this trough, cold trough here dropping into the southern southeast coast. And at 9,000 feet, we've got northeast winds, 45 knots across the southeast coast, north 40 knots there. Blowing into northern Prince William Sound, actually down into the Gulf of Alaska. And then again, winds coming up from the southwest here at 65 knots over the Bering Sea and up and over this ridge there, back to the northwest at about 45 knots there, Kodiak Island, turning westerly at 45 in toward Cape Newenham. And then for 3,000 feet, much the same pattern here, except more sporadic on the wind fields here, kind of one there in the Gulf of Alaska, not too strong. 45 knot winds out of the northeast here, pulling that cold Arctic air down into the panhandle and off the coast there for the southeast coast, lighter into the north area under high pressure, and a broad area of south to southwest winds coming right into the southwest coast here, and south winds up to 45 knots there for the northwest coast. Turbulence, considerable moderate turbulence in the forecast all along the western areas here from Togiak, Cape Newenham, northward there to possibly Point Ley. All of the Aleutians look for a pretty bumpy day tomorrow into the western Alaska Peninsula, and moderate turbulence also for Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, northern and eastern Panhandle.